Okay, so over the course of my renewable energy project, the videos that I've uploaded to YouTube, I have given some tips and tricks as far as reducing the draw that you have on the grid, which in then turn would reduce your cost and increase your independence of that grid. So I've got a lot of videos on the solar, renewable energy, things like that, grid tie. But it's not enough to simply be aware that you're leaving a light on or how many times you open the fridge. You actually need to be conscious on a daily level and track your costs. Track your daily costs, your monthly cost, and what that'll do is that will really, really ingrain in your soul, if you believe in one of those, reducing your energy costs, figuring out ways. And if you hop on the computer to get on Facebook or whatever for 30 minutes, and you have a smartphone that can do the same thing, well, maybe you'll decide after seeing that your bill is rising a little bit, maybe you'll decide to do that on your phone from here on out or something like that. I mean, it makes you look for alternative ways. It's sort of like a game almost to try to keep your kilowatt hours down as low as possible. And that's exactly how I feel. I am very, very conscious about our electricity usage, and I track our electricity usage on a daily basis. Every day in the morning at approximately the same time, right when I get home from work, I look at our meter and I will adjust these numbers that you see here on the wall to make sure that we are actually in line with what we should be. And it has become a serious thing in my family, well, mainly for me, but it has become a serious thing in my family to keep this number as low as possible. I've got a family of 4, okay? And I can tell you right now, looking at last year's bill for October. Now, granted, every year is going to be different based on how cold it is outside or whatever, but I can tell you last year's bill for the month of October, which means it would run from approximately mid-September to mid-October, I used 299 kilowatt hours for the month. Now, that is actually the lowest of that year that we used because the heater wasn't running, the air conditioning wasn't running. Okay, so while 299 may seem like it's really low to you, it's actually low for us at that time. Okay, so if you look at this the way that I've got it set up here, it's October 6th. Okay, and based on my meter reads, I'm at 21 days into the billing cycle, and I've only used 98 kilowatts, which is exactly 200 kilowatt hours less than I did last year. Now, of course, I still have approximately 8 more days left of the billing cycle, but if you go based on my average use per day, then I should be adding to this number about 40 to 50 kilowatts if I stay on track to where I'm at, which will bring this number to about 150. So that's exactly half of what I used last year, exactly half. Now you could contribute some of that to me being conscious about leaving lights on, me having my solar panels that's actually assisting me in providing my energy needs, but the point is that exactly 1/2 of my use for average right now is what I'm using. And that's been true since I got this system up and running, since I got my first panel up and running, and now that I have 3 panels going, it's actually increasing that off-grid use quite a bit. So I'm really, really conscious about this, and I'm really checking this out. And fortunately for me, I have the old style analog meter. It's got the wheel that spins to indicate that I'm using electricity. It's got the analog dials that tell the kilowatt hours. I'm lucky there. Okay. My grid tie inverter will make that meter spin backwards, okay? Now, this isn't a question about stealing electricity or anything else like that. That's not the case. I'm actually giving electricity from my solar panels to the grid, okay? So, by doing so, I'm actually able to return that meter back, okay? Now, again, this is not about stealing electricity. I'm generating electricity and sending it back into the grid. So, the electric company actually has to provide less to my neighbor, for example, because they actually don't have to pay for the cost of sending electricity to that person. I am recouping that cost for them by sending it back, and they are essentially not billing me. So if you want more information on grid tie inverters and the whole legal and moral stance on those kind of things, do a Google search. You can find a lot of information. You will find a very polarized group of people, either on the negative side of it or the positive side of it. That's just the way that it is. So I'm going to leave it at that, and just move on from there. I'll allow you to do your research, okay? So if I had one of those new digital, cellular smart meters is what they're called, then I would not be able to roll my meter back. They are, unfortunately, they will charge you, believe it or not. They charge for the electricity that's actually passing through it, whether it's incoming or outgoing. They actually charge for the amount of electricity that's passing through the meter. So unfortunately, the smart meters are not compatible with grid tie inverters. Now, I know that my electric company is going to be going through here within the next year, and they're going to be replacing my meter with a smart meter. I have already opted out of that smart meter. Now, I don't have to give a reason, because by law here in the state of Michigan, I can actually opt out of it. They charged me a flat rate of $99, which is essentially their cost to be able to come out either once a month or once a year to read the meter. They charged me that flat rate so that I can keep my old meter. The reasons behind that is because many people out there are unsure about cellular transmissions. So you can actually opt out, at least in this state, you can opt out of getting a smart meter. And that is exactly what I did. I paid the flat rate. Now I don't have to worry about it. And if we move into a house and there's a smart meter there, I can actually transfer my meter to that new house. They have to, by law. They can't just say, well, it's there, so you're stuck with it. No, they actually have to, by law, remove it, replace it with an analog meter. Now, we are going into the digital age, and it's making things a lot cheaper for them to not have to come out and read the meter. I understand that. But I'm choosing to stay with an analog meter so that I can grid tie my solar energy back into the grid, so that I can actually spin my meter backwards. I'm providing my energy company with electricity basically so that they don't have to provide it to anyone else. So they are, in a sense, paying me to provide electricity rather than paying their sources wherever they're getting it. Okay? Now, you can, again, look all that information up on the internet and figure it out for yourself as far as if you need details. But needless to say, I have the ability to roll my meter back and continuously monitor this with my grid tie inverter, with my off-grid setup, and I can see exactly where I'm at cost-wise for the month to date. And then I can compare that with the bill that they send me. I've had this number be way off, because I looked at my bill one month and it spiked way up, and I said, well, man, I didn't think I was running the air that long. This was years and years back. So I went out and checked the meter, and sure enough, they were off. And so I had to call them. They came out and reread the meter, and they adjusted my bill, and took care of it. So if you're not conscious about what these numbers are, and suddenly you get this big spike in your bill, and you think, oh well, I guess I screwed up. Well, maybe you didn't screw up. Maybe there was a problem. Maybe there's a problem with the meter. So staying on top of that is always helpful. But anyway, so what I'm basically getting at here is that simply being conscious about turning your lights off, not opening your fridge, or leaving the computer in sleep mode or something overnight, that's not good enough. If you want to get into renewable energy and you really want to reduce your footprint, then you need to be able to keep track of this. Now, I have a whiteboard for this purpose. You could use your cell phone. You could, you could do basically piece of paper and pencil if you really wanted to. I already had this whiteboard, and I wanted to make it prominent in the dining room so that everybody can see, including myself, my family, friends, whoever comes over, everybody can see, hey, I'm on top of this. Plus, I walk by this all the time, so it reminds me, hey, all right, well, I need to go check the meter. Maybe, sometimes, even though it's burning my brain, if I have days off or something, my day gets a little off track, so sometimes I don't go right out at 8, or I'll go out later, or whatever. I've got this big whiteboard here to actually remind me and stay conscious about my electricity usage. So how I have it set up is where the meter was read last month on the exact day, and then there's today's date, which is the 6th. This is what I've used, to this day. And then that's 21 days, 98 kilowatt hours so far for the month. We're 3 weeks in, and approximately 17 cents per kilowatt hour brings me to a total of $16.67. So my bill, if they were to bill me today, should be at that amount right there. Now I have actually increased this number. This number is actually about 16.8 cents. I've rounded it up to 17 so that I can, just be on the safe side. So this my true cost is actually slightly lower, not that much lower. And then here's my average, 4.6 kilowatt hours per day approximately. So this number right here again is really useful. If you haven't got into solar panels yet, you haven't got your off-grid setup or grid tie or anything else like that, and you want to know how big of a system you need to get yourself completely off the grid or to start making money off of your contributions. If you have a contract with your energy company, they are going to look at this number right here, okay? If you were to call your energy company today and say, you know what, I want to get paid for the electricity that I'm going to be generating, I've got a contractor coming out, they're going to install an array of panels, whatever, they're going to want this number. Actually, they're going to be able to figure it out for themselves, but this number is actually a good indication of what you're actually using. So since I'm using 4.6 kilowatt hours per day average this month, I have to generate 4.6 kilowatts in that day to be able to be completely independent of the grid, to actually zero out my usage from the grid. 4.6 kilowatts is quite a bit when I'm in the situation I'm in where I live in an apartment. I would literally have to divide my panels up into this 4.6 kilowatts to figure out if that's even possible, which right now it is not possible. I have a 300 watt array, okay, and I'm only getting the afternoon and evening sun. So I'm only generating, in the winter time, I'm probably only going to be generating about 1.5 kilowatts, maybe 2 at the most. In the summer, I'm probably going to be getting around 3 kilowatts of generation, which still isn't going to be high enough. Now, of course, I can keep adding more panels. That's great. That's exactly what my plan is. But you want this number to figure out how many panels you're going to have in your own place, if you have your own yard, your own house. And so it's pointless to just stick to spend, $30,000 on a 1 kilowatt array. They come out, they hook it up, you get everything all proper, because then you're not making any money back. So this number is really important. It's also really important to me because then I can see if my usage is going up or down and why. What am I doing? Alright, so I've blabbled on enough, but hopefully you'll set up your own whiteboard or whatever you have to keep track of your electricity, and you can see what your usage is, and hopefully that will actually help you reduce your energy costs to really stay on top of it. That's real important. So hopefully this video has helped you out. Check out my renewable energy project with all my solar panels and grid tie and all that other good stuff related to renewable energy. So I'll catch you guys.